No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and we're going to talk quickly about the games from yesterday and then take a look at the games for tomorrow. So yesterday was the first day of the main event at Worlds, and before that first day, in my previous video, I gave out the winners that I thought would win. We had first up the T1 and Team Liquid game. I think that Team Liquid had a pretty good showing. I think that the problem is that it was a close game. They were in a winning position and they lost. So at the end of the day, it's a bad loss. As a professional team, you should be able to convert from that position. T1 is a very good team. I think that T1's a better team, so I'm not surprised that it ended up going that way. But there were multiple matches today that were closer than expected, and yet at the end of the day, the team that was expected to win won the game because they were able to perform in pressure situations. And there's one team from the West that also did that, so we'll mention that as well in a minute or two. Next up, we had C9 over Mad Lions. I picked that one correctly as well. C9 was pretty dominant in that game. It was close in the early and mid game, but then they were decisive, and decisiveness in League of Legends is often making a call about a specific objective and then just following through, because it forces the enemy team to not only make the right decision but make it within a certain time frame. Otherwise, they're not able to respond. And this was a match where I think that the Xayah against Ezreal matchup was pretty felt. Then we had JDG against BDS, and this is one of the games where BDS was actually keeping the game extremely close and was even winning at different periods. Shio looks like a horrible Vi player. I don't know if he's supposedly good at the champion or not, but there were a bunch of times where it's like he wasn't even trying to land his Q, would get to the end of his Q and then just ult somebody. If it's the only thing that you can do, then I get it, but it just looked very clunky and like he wasn't very good at the champion or didn't have much expertise on the champion. And again, this is a spot where, from a team comp perspective, for JDG, even though they were losing the according to the gold score at the top of the screens, they had Ornn, and their team composition was strong enough to have a play around Baron early on in the game. And a lot of teams don't do this, and this is one thing that there are a lot of people out there who advocate for, getting into position early and getting a pick. If you get the pick, do the Baron. If you're already in a losing, quote unquote, losing position from the gold perspective, where you're down 2,000 gold, you might as well try to make that kind of play. So hats off to JDG. It was a good play. They made a pick on Shio, and then they took Baron. The other question would be, should BDS stay that close? I think BDS kind of misplayed around one of the Baron fights where Adam had a chance to kill Ruler, and it just didn't work out. But the way that the team was kind of dancing around the Baron pit kind of made it obvious that Adam was in a flanking position. So I'm not sure how to really say that any other way. So that was 3 games in. I had all those correct. Then we had G2 against Damwon, and this was a game that I was on. I had G2 as an underdog, and I thought that this was a good spot to bet because I think that they're very similar in terms of strength and style. And in this game, right when you see Hans Sama on Draven, you remember, oh yeah, this guy's very good at Draven. And that's the kind of thing that isn't always going to be at the forefront of everyone's mind going into a matchup. But G2 looked very good in this game. They flipped a Baron at one point and lost the Baron and gave up multiple kills. A lot of teams would fold under that pressure, would crumble after that kind of quote-unquote mistake. I didn't think that it was a bad decision necessarily to go after that Baron. It's just the execution was poor. That Canyon's on the other side of the wall, and Canyon and Kana end up coming in, getting multiple kills, and the Baron. So that was an opportunity for G2 to kind of lose that game if they didn't keep applying pressure to Damwon. They end up getting Dragon Soul and they looked pretty convincing. I think there were a lot of times where Broken Blade made some good maneuvering positions out of bad spots where, he was trying to flank. They started focusing him, looked like he was going to die, goes into GA, somehow escapes. So I think Broken Blade had a pretty good game. Then right after that game happened, the next game up was NRG, and I didn't want to risk losing my parlay because I didn't really believe in NRG as much as I did originally. And I'm happy I cashed out that bet because NRG's draft was completely terrible. Callista Ornn is just, there's no words to describe how stupid that is. They also had Talia Jace, I think. So just really bad team composition in my mind. It doesn't mean that all of those champions are bad. It just, that combination of champions just doesn't make sense to me. I'd be shocked if we see anything like that from an Eastern team. Callista Ornn just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Then we have Fnatic. I think Fnatic looked bad, honestly. There were points where it was close, but Fnatic just doesn't look like a good team. And that's a spot where Razork is obviously not a very good jungler compared to the other junglers that there are in the world. I don't think that this was a good spot for them to play. I think they played Talia. Didn't really seem like a good Talia angle. If you are the less talented jungler, you probably shouldn't play a skillful jungle champion like Talia. And then BLG looked good against KT. KT actually looked pretty good as well. The Zac pick was pretty interesting, and I always enjoy seeing different champions make their way onto the Rift. So let's talk about the tier list real quick, and we'll just go from these matchups. So JDG is ranked higher than BDS. They won. Gen G beat GAM. I didn't even mention that game before, but they did. T1 beat Team Liquid. So that tier list looks fine. G2 beating Damwon. They're right next to each other. That can go either way. Weibo beat NRG, and NRG had the horrible draft. BLG beat KT. LNG beat Fnatic. C9 beat Mad. So the only one that would go quote unquote go against the tier list or the rankings would be G2 over Damwon, but they're right next to each other, and anyone within the same tier, like, I'm not surprised if they lose. Even if you lose within one tier, that's not completely shocking. Losing to a team that's 2 tiers away from you, that's, sometimes reason for concern, but especially in a best of 1 format, we're not going to overreact to that. So tomorrow we have Team Liquid against NRG. I think that we will have the line that I'm seeing is -140 to +100. Team Liquid is the favorite. I think that that's an okay spot to pick NRG. I don't think you're getting a ton of value for that pick. The line would need to be probably closer to 140 or +140 to feel like you're actually getting some value out of it. I think that NRG's draft probably won't be as bad as it was today, and I think that they can hold their own against Team Liquid, and everyone will be thinking to themselves that Team Liquid is better because they had a good showing against T1. That's not really how it works, but hey, maybe they end up showing up and stomping NRG. The only way that the idea that they're showing against T1 is going to translate into NRG would be if Team Liquid completely dominates NRG. But even in that scenario, like, that can happen to anybody. Second match is LNG against Cloud9. So LNG I have in a tier above Cloud9, but according to the sportsbook, it's LNG -700, Cloud9 +400. That means it's a good betting opportunity on C9, in my opinion. That number is just too high. So -700, they're projected to win like over 85% of the time. I think that that's a good spot for Cloud9. +400 is like 20% or less. I'll take that. So that's a pretty good one. I'll add that to the list. Mad Lions against Team BDS. So Mad Lions and BDS. Mad Lions coming off of a loss to Cloud9, which obviously feels which feels worse than a loss to JDG. That's kind of expected. Since they're in the same tier, I don't really have a huge lean either way, but I wouldn't be shocked if Adam is able to beat Chasey pretty hard. I do prefer Elyoya over Shio. That's probably the most important matchup. Niski against Nuclear, I don't really care too much. Karzi and Hylissang, I don't really care against Crownie and Labrov. It's kind of whatever. That's probably a pass for me. Fnatic against GAM. So Fnatic at minus 400, GAM at plus 275. This is another one where there is probably value on GAM. They were dominated by Gen G, but Fnatic's not Gen G. So, I would take a look at GAM. That could be an okay bet. Then we have Gen G against T1. So Gen G right above T1, but I think they're very close. Minus 225 to plus 162. That just doesn't seem right to me either. So that's another one that I would consider betting. I don't think it's that far off. Owner is going to be pretty good in this meta. If the carry opportunities present themselves, I think that Keria, like playing Renata, isn't an opportunity to showcase how amazing you are at playing support. Like, is it impactful? Yes. But is it some kind of like incredibly skillful champion, or like nobody else can do it? No. But there are ways for Keria to kind of have a higher level of skill expression in the game, and I think that we will see that at some point. Faker, Gumayusi, I mean, just a really good team. I think that when in this type of meta, when Jace starts becoming something that's very popular as well, historically that's been good for T1 because that means that there are probably other more true AD carry type champions other than Jace that would work in the mid lane role as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing other attack based champions in the game, like maybe not Corki, but also maybe Corki. I'm not sure how he's been doing recently, but in this type of meta, we'll see Faker take Ezreal mid sometimes. I don't love it. I would prefer for them to stick with the actual utility champions, but we'll see how that goes. One champion that I want to keep a lookout for is Aphelios. If teams are playing Aphelios, I think I want to bet against them. That is... Okay, now we're at G2 against Weibo. I kind of want to bet G2, but I think that this line is basically begging you to bet G2. So it's probably a stay away for me. But I think G2 is clearly the best Western team right now. The way that they kind of held their own after throwing away a Baron is pretty important for their chances in this tournament. But we could easily see G2 be 2-0 after that match tonight. Then we have JDG against BLG. And, JDG is probably the best team in the world, but plus 200 on BLG seems like a lot. I'm not going to bet it, but I wouldn't like criticize you for betting it. Plus 200 when you're within one tier in my mind. What would basically happen is if JDG goes to this tournament and completely dominates everybody, then this tier list will probably look directionally correct, but like in terms of like the magnitude of the tiers, it would have to change. So like you would probably need to add another tier here where JDG would be leaps and bounds above everyone else, like if they have a dominant performance throughout Worlds. But the fact that they were losing to BDS in the early and mid game, that is kind of a knock against them. Maybe BLG has a better shot. Like I said, plus 200, pretty good number. Like not crazy to bet on them. And because of the timing, the second match of the day is Cloud9 against LNG. I think that probably take the Cloud9, start off a parlay with Cloud9. Then you go into GAM against Fnatic. I would be fine going after that. Then once after each victory, see if they offer you a cash out, and maybe just see how you feel at that point. But I could see a multiple underdog parlay where you go Cloud9, GAM, T1, and BLG, and you just consistently ask yourself, do I want to roll it to the next one? And then Damwon against KT. Damwon is an underdog. I'll take Damwon against KT Rolster any day of the week. So those are 5 underdogs I think have pretty good chances of winning. I think that G2 has a pretty good chance of winning, but it's reflected in the line. I think that BDS against Mad Lions is kind of unclear. Part of me hopes that BDS wins because they are kind of pushing the envelope on like different top lane champions that a bunch of other teams aren't playing, which is pretty cool. NRG versus Team Liquid, I just don't think there's really any value on either side. It's basically a coin flip either way. So Cloud9, GAM, T1, BLG, Dom1. I would say maybe do a round robin kind of thing or 5-leg parlay. Not crazy. That 5-leg parlay is plus 35,000. I'm not betting plus 35,000. But would I bet? Would I get 5 on it? Maybe I would. Maybe I won't. You'll just have to find out in tomorrow's video to see how my bet goes. It was funny. Like I woke up at right around 1 o'clock, and I had it on while I was like going in and out of consciousness. But I'm happy Worlds is here. Not going to make any changes to the tier list yet, but after tomorrow's games, I'll probably reconsider where teams should be in relation to one another. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.